A warm welcome to everyone listening wherever you are. This is Martin Hodgson, and I'm your host for As Above, So Below Radio. When you get a chance, please visit the website holisticadvocate.com, where you will find links to empower you and your health, and also featured articles to stimulate your intellect. Guests interviewed are from diverse backgrounds, which include bloggers, filmmakers, inventors, lecturers, musicians, practitioners, researchers, speakers, thinkers, writers, and anyone else who befits a profile worth exploring and bringing them to you, our listeners. Today's guest is Maria Hel. She's an author, a lecturer, a gifted psychic, Reiki Master, and produces weekly radio shows on her website, which is called Meria.net. Maria is an invaluable proponent to civil liberties and an outspoken personality on a variety of subjects, and it's my pleasure to welcome her here.
And Maria, we've spoken before a while back, and so for any audience members listening in for the first time, can you just give a brief explanation about your background as a psychic and a Reiki Master?
Well, yeah, I can. I've been a Reiki Master for about 20 years now. And for people that don't know what Reiki is, I have a book on it, and I have information on it on my website, which is Meria.net, Meria.net. Mm-hmm. And as far as my psychic gift, I'd rather call it my intuitive gift, since psychic has such a negative connotation. Wow. When I was 4 years old, I got hit by a truck and almost died. I was unconscious for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And when I came to, I was a different person. That's all I can say. I was a totally different person. I was a 4-year-old girl who knew everything about parallel universes, time and space, and you name it. So it was quite an adjustment for my family members.
Right. Okay.
But I've been working professionally doing consultations for people for about, I would say, 35 years.
Wow. Okay. You've also written several books. Can you just mention those books and where they can be purchased?
Well, yeah. One of the books, which is almost out of print now, was The Awakening of an American, How My Country Broke My Heart. It was based on some early interviews I did on my show, my podcast, which is the longest podcast on the net. It's been online for 13 years. And my other book is on what I teach, Reinventing the Wheel, the universal wheel as the tool for peace and unity. And my other one is a simple book on Reiki 1, 2, and 3, because there's a lot of misinformation out there and way too much information for something that should be fairly simple. And people can buy my books on Amazon, or they can buy them right off my website, which is Meria.net.
Great. And you host this radio program, once a day or once a week? Or
I do 4 or 5 shows every week, and I have for the past 13 years. Just suffice it to say, I have 154 backup discs with 20 to 30 shows on each disc.
Wow. Okay. So you got a lot of inventory of stories to share to the public then, right?
Well, absolutely. I have a total knowledge and education sitting on my website. Right now, we probably archive about 800 plus hours. Wow. So anyone that goes to my site can get at least 20 or more shows for free, and they can choose a subscription of their choice to support the show and get to hear the shows that they don't get to hear for free. I recently got picked up on iTunes, and within 1 week, my show made their front page.
Right. Okay.
So it's nice to know people are open to real information.
Right. That's good to know. Okay, so let's just shift gears here, and can you give us an understanding of the whole concept of death and reincarnation? I know that some people, it's almost a taboo subject to discuss death. Most people tend to fear it. They'd rather put aside in the minds about dying and so forth, usually waiting the last years of our life and so forth. Some cultures, they tend to prepare for the dying experience.
Well, of course.
Uh-huh.
From the minute we're born, we begin to die. So
Right.
for anybody to think that it's not going to happen to them is kind of crazy.
Right.
I've had a living will and all my papers in place for, since my children were born. It's just being responsible and to understand that, death walks alongside us every day of our lives. And it really isn't anything to fear. It's no different than forgetting your spiritual life when you pass through the entrance to this planet.
Right.
So death is really an entrance back into your spirit life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand there's a lot of fear around it because it is the ultimate unknown for a lot of people.
Right.
But, I would suggest people read books, especially one that I came across this year, which is called Your Life After Death. And it's written by a fabulous author named Michael Rekia. But people have to understand this life is certainly not all there is. And as far as reincarnation, you reincarnate if you want to. But the optimal thing is not to come back here. There's way better places to travel through in the universe than coming back to Earth, which is, suffering under ignorance and fear.
Right.
So the trick is to make sure you don't come back.
Right. Well, it just seems that certain institutions, they put the fear of God, they drill the fear of God in you, so much so that some people are afraid of the dying experience. And so associated with that is the guilt of having, let's say, committed a sin. So that mindset there seems to, I guess, follow that certain person, towards the end of his or her life.
Well, right. And then they'll create the same situation they believe is going to happen once they go back into spirit.
Right.
And sometimes they can, stay in a hell of their own choosing until their higher self says, okay, you've wallowed in that long enough. It's time to wake up.
Right.
But I do think that religion has given God a bad name.
Right.
And, I forget where in the Bible it is. I think it's the book of Isaiah or could be Psalms, where God very clearly makes it very clear that he's aware, he, it, she, whatever, is aware of every bird that falls out of the sky.
Right.
So for people to think that God is going to forsake them in any way because they sinned by whatever man's law is,
Right.
it's kind of silly.
Right.
So I just tell people, just remember the one 3-word sentence in the Bible that's important and discount the rest. And the sentence was, God is love. And that's all you need to know. And if you can really believe that, you lose the fear.
Good. Okay. So getting back to this concept or this perception of death, actually, would you believe that it's actually just an illusion, that it's just a migration of a soul from one vibratory state to another?
Absolutely. I mean, the human body is merely our computer. It's a little spacesuit we wear to enjoy a brief time here on planet Earth.
Right.
And the body, wasn't made to last forever any more than any other living organism on the planet was.
Right.
It's just a temporary vehicle. Native Americans say it best. They say that the way they refer to death is laying down their robe. And I think that's a good way to look at it. You really just drop the body and go on, onward and upward, hopefully to something better.
Right. That makes sense. Well, most of us have this understanding that reincarnation pretty much is an indication that we have to come back here to correct an error, to reconcile our karma, so to speak. But in fact, do you actually agree that reincarnation helps us accrue knowledge for the soul?
Well, it really depends on the soul's reason for coming back into physical form.
Yeah.
My understanding is, and this might be a stretch for your listeners to understand, is this planet is a playground.
Right.
It's no different than taking your family to Disneyland.
Right.
You know, one day you're on the roller coaster, the next day you're on the carousel. You might go through the House of Horrors. You might go through a haunted house. You might go through the Tunnel of Love. But it's all an illusory amusement park. So I often tell people, if you're not having a good time in your life, you are creating that misery. And it's very hard for people to understand that. Some people, I don't like to call it karma as much as experiences that they they wrote that they wanted to have in their timeline in this particular life. You know, before they come down here, hey, I want to see what it's like to be gay in a straight world, or I want to experience this thing they call cancer. And I know that those are hard concepts for people to understand, but it's generally highly evolved souls that pick very hard lives because they want to experience everything.
Right. Okay. Well, let's see. What about psychic development? There are some people, some listeners out there who may have had encounters with their psychic or hidden psychic gifts that are being awakened, so to speak.
Right.
Do you encourage anyone out there who's listening to attune to their psychic gifts to further enhance these psychic gifts?
Absolutely. If everybody did that, we could change this world just by shifting mass consciousness.
Right.
But everything in this world is set up to shut down your pineal gland and your third eye, your psychic ability. It's everything from what they spray in the air above us to what they put in our food.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on pharmaceutical drugs, well, that's the best way to shut down your sixth sense.
Right.
Thus, so many drugged out children.
Right.
But I absolutely recommend, and I train a lot of people. I've taught metaphysics for years.
Mm-hmm.
And if I meet somebody that I can tell really has the gift, you know, there's no way they're going to escape my strong suggestion that they work with me and learn how to develop it.
Right. Okay. So what practices or techniques do you recommend for anyone who wants to explore their psychic gifts? Beyond, of course, meditation, do you recommend, let's say, taking a class, reading a certain book that's out there?
Well, I can tell you, after all the years of teaching, and I've taught through different colleges, I've taught in New York City school systems, everything metaphysics, everything from crystals to tarot to the medicine wheel, Reiki, and how to develop your psychic ability. Right. And the easiest way, there are two easy ways that are non-threatening and won't scare people, because people do have a lot of fear when it comes to these things because they've been programmed to be afraid of it. Mm-hmm. One of the ways is to get your Reiki attunements. Right. Reiki will automatically develop your sixth sense. It just happens automatically. Can't get any easier. Mm-hmm. The second, which I believe is the strongest tool I've ever used and the simplest tool, and it's free, is working with a medicine wheel. And I have a book out on the medicine wheel. I have a how-to video out on the medicine wheel. All you need is 13 rocks that you can find anywhere. But the people that have worked with one, myself included, is a life-changing experience. Everything you need to know will just come to you. And there is no, I certainly don't say don't take any classes. If there's something out there that attracts you, by all means, why not? But everybody needs to remember that spiritual